Father, thank you for this wonderful book. And we just believe and trust that you are speaking to us, that you have a word especially for us. And I ask only what is true and what is praiseworthy will be spoken. If there's anything that I say that is not of you, Lord, stop me from saying it or blot it out of all our minds. And bless us that only your will be done. Fill us with your spirit, we ask in Jesus' name. Amen. Continuing with Deuteronomy, and I think we've had so much time to go through the book that at least half of you all should have finished. And I'm just going to hope in my heart that you all have finished it. And if you haven't, just go home, read it as much as you can. It's a wonderful, wonderful book. And we'll just dive in and see what it's about, at least how much we've done with in the past. So from what we know so far, Deuteronomy is the last book that Moses wrote. It's the fifth book of the Pentateuch. It's Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and then Deuteronomy. It's the fifth book of the Torah. And it is Moses giving a speech right before the people enter the promised land. And just before this, he's explained everything. He said, we saw 2 weeks back how the people were told to conquer the land because it was God's way of judging the evil people who were in that land. The people who were living in that land were performing things like child sacrifice and all kinds of weird stuff. And God was using the Israelites to punish them and then letting Israel dwell in the land and warning Israel, saying, if you also do the same things like the previous inhabitants of the land did, the same thing will happen to you. And that's where we are. And this is the last week of Moses' life. And Moses, at this point, Deuteronomy, what he does is he gives the people 3 speeches. So the entirety of the book of Deuteronomy is 3 full speeches. And it's long speeches. And it's a very personal speech and an emotional speech. And this is speculation, but here's what I think happened. That Moses would speak on day 1. On day 2, he would write it all down. Day 3, he would go speak again. Day 4, he would write it all down. Day 5, he'd give the last speech. And day 6, he would write it all down for us to read. And whatever he wrote, he gave it to the priests so that they could put it in the Ark of the Covenant so that people would never forget. And so these are the 3 speeches. And what they cover, 1 to 1st chapter to 4th chapter, what they cover are the past. And the longest speech is the present, which is the regulations. The past is what happened. The present is regulations, what they need to do, the laws and everything. And the last speech is the future, what they should do and what is going to happen to them. And so the past is Moses looks back on the days after Exodus, after Sinai, after God made a covenant. When God had made a covenant with, who did God make a covenant with? In Leviticus, at Mount Sinai. All right, is it the people who Moses is speaking to? That's right, it's not the people Moses is speaking to. It was their parents. In Leviticus, God made a covenant with people who disobeyed the covenant, and so they all died. And now there's the next generation now. And so Moses is speaking to them, reminding them of everything that happened. He's reminding them that the covenant was broken. He's reminding them that they were set free and they came all the way down and they went to Kadesh Barnea and they could enter, and God told them enter, but instead what they did was they sent spies, and the spies came back saying, no, we can't enter, it's a scary land, it's full of giants. Oh no, God must hate us. And God said, okay, fine, have it your way, don't enter. And so they all died. And Moses is reminding them of that disobedience in his past speech. Only 2 people did not disobey, Joshua and Caleb. They were the only 2 people from the first generation that entered the promised land. And God had been faithful to them, they were faithless. And so the message of that entire first speech is, don't be faithless like your parents. They lost their faith, and so they lost the land. And he's telling them, if you keep your faith, you will keep the land. That's speech number 1. Speech number 2 is the longest speech. It's the legislation part. It's the giving of the laws. It's the longest section. He begins with what he's already told them, the 10 commandments. Because this is a generation that probably doesn't know the 10 commandments. And so Moses gives them the 10 commandments, and it's all about respect. It's about respect God, respect his day, respect parents, respect marriage, respect other people's property, respect life. Every command is just about respecting each other. He gives these 10 commandments, and then he tells them why the law is given in chapter 6. He says the purpose of the law is so that love can be communicated from one generation to the next. Chapter 7, he goes on and says, abolish idolatry, destroy your enemies. Chapter 8, he tells, remember God's dealings with the people, don't forget God. And he tells them, don't forget God, and I need you to fill in the blanks here, especially in times of prosperity. It is not don't forget God in times of trouble. Because most of us will remember God in times of trouble. And then we curse him. And we say, oh, God was real, he wouldn't, but we still remember God. But in times of prosperity is we tend to forget. In times of prosperity is when we think, I have made it here on my own. In times of prosperity and rejoicing and when good things are going on in your life is when you're like, I'm fine. I think I'm going to enjoy this for a bit, and when things go bad, I mean, we don't think it, but we just tend to get carried away. And we ignore God. And here's God saying, it's going to happen. Don't let it happen. Remember God always. In fact, he says that you will be tempted to say, it is with my own hands that I have built this. But remember, it is the Lord your God who gives you the ability to create wealth. In good times. I'm saying this because when you are prosperous, I'm not saying if you are prosperous, I know that we will be prosperous. And when you are prosperous and you see someone else struggling, the temptation is to say, they haven't worked as hard as I have. That's why they're struggling. When in reality, you have what you have only because God has given it to you. Right? Think about anyone in the room, outside the room, you are looking at with condemnation or looking down upon, saying, they don't do their part and so that's why they're suffering. I've done my part and that's why I'm okay. And here's God saying, no, I gave you the ability to do your part. Do not forget God in the times of prosperity. Chapter 9 to 10, they are warned not to be self-righteous. Chapter 10 to 11 is all about obedience. If you obey, you will be blessed. If you disobey, you will be cursed. The choice is yours. And throughout this section, the word hear comes 50 times. As do the words do and keep and observe. Those come 177 times. And along with those words, another common word that keeps coming up is love. 31 times. If you love the Lord, you keep his laws. Jesus said the same thing. If you love me, you will keep my commandments. In the New Testament, Paul writes, love is the fulfilling of the law. It's not a matter of getting God's favor by approving of us, saying, oh, I've done this much, so God better owe me. It is a matter of love. God has loved you first. How do we love him back? By keeping his commandments. To love is to obey. Chapters 12 to 26, it moves from our vertical relationship with God to our horizontal relationship with people. About how to deal with people. And this entire section of the law, they may seem weird to us, okay? There's a lot of laws that are just, don't mix seeds. I'm like, okay, I don't even have seeds ever. But it's like, don't plant the same kind of seeds in soil. I'm like, okay, God, I'll never plant seeds. Don't mix fabric, which is where we all fail because we're all wearing mixed fabric. And so there are these weird laws that we don't understand, and they become clear only when we start to contrast them with other societies of that time, right? So there's an ancient law that has been discovered, and it's called the Code of Hammurabi. It's this huge, weird shaped rock, and zoom in there and you get these inscriptions and stuff. It's in a museum somewhere today, I think France or something. But it's an ancient law that's been discovered, Code of Hammurabi, an ancient Amorite king of Babylon. Right? This was 300 years before Moses. 300 years before Moses. And you know what it includes? It includes prohibitions of killing, prohibitions of adultery, prohibitions of stealing, prohibitions of false witness. Even the famous eye for an eye, lex talionis is there. Eye for an eye, tooth for tooth, something like that is in this law of Hammurabi. Now, the first instinct when we hear something like that is to go, Moses copied from this. And so the Bible must not be true. Or something like that, right? But this being here should not surprise us. Because in Romans, the Apostle Paul says that God has written the requirements of the law on their hearts, even if they've never heard of God, even if they've never heard of Jesus. God has already written the requirements of the law on everyone's hearts. Their consciences also bearing witness, and their thoughts sometimes accusing them and at other times even defending them. Every single person in this world, to some extent, is able to recognize that killing somebody else is wrong. Where are they getting that from? The law written on their hearts, the consciousness. Every single society, I'm not sure if this is true, but I'm assuming it's true from everything that I've read. Every single society in history has always treated incest as something that's prohibited. Where did that law come from? Inscribed on our hearts. And now science has caught up to it saying incest, bad, children go all over the place, right? But here, this law, here's Paul the Apostle saying the law of God is written on our hearts, of even pagans. And so there are similarities between the Code of Hammurabi and the law of Moses. But at the same time, there are big, big differences between the Code of Hammurabi and the law of Moses. In the law of Moses, in the Code of Hammurabi, every single punishment, every single crime, there's one punishment. Death. In the law of Moses, there are just 15 to 20 crimes that deserve the death penalty. The law of Hammurabi treated slaves and women as property. In Moses, they are seen as people. In the Code of Hammurabi, there's class distinctions. There's different laws for nobles, different laws for common people. But in the law of Moses, everyone is treated equally. Whether you're rich or you're poor, you have to be treated equally. In fact, God goes so far as to say, don't feel, if the poor have committed a crime, don't feel sad for them and deny justice. If the rich have committed a crime, don't take bribes from them and deny justice. No matter your wealth or your status, the law is the law. That's what God says. The law of Hammurabi presents the law as conditions. If you do this, you must die. The law of Moses, it's not really given as conditions so much as it is given as commands. Must not do this. Do this. Because God is king, and as king, he gets to just declare statements and commands. He gets to say, do it, obey, because I am your king. He sets the standard as king. Remember when we did this in Exodus, the commands of God, when God gives a command, it's not like a prime minister or a president giving a law that can benefit him and the people. When God gives a command, he is describing his character. When God says, do not bear false witness, what he's saying is, I don't bear false witness. And since I've made you in my image, you by nature are meant not to bear false witness. And so when you actually bear false witness, it is against the nature of your very being. You're not designed for it. Do not murder when God says, he's saying, I don't murder. And so for you to murder because you are made in my image is to go against your nature. And so every command that God gives is actually either prophetic or it's a description of who he is. I am the Lord your God, you shall have no other gods before me. It's a description of who he is. There are no other gods before him. He can say, do not steal because he never steals. He can say, do not commit adultery because he is dedicated to you. And he will not cheat on you. And he gets to tell us his nature. And all these laws, it tells us his nature about religion. Like it tells us Israel is forbidden to follow other gods or erect images. We are told that God is a jealous God. For the Lord your God who is among you is a jealous God. Somewhere else in Exodus it says, for his name is jealous. Imagine that. Because jealousy is an appropriate emotion for God. We are jealous when we want what is ours. If a drug dealer comes and tries to sell drugs to my son, I'm going to fight him because I am jealous for my son. And I will not let some fool come and try and steal him away from me in that way. Because I'm jealous for him. Jealousy is an appropriate emotion for something that is yours. Envy is when we want what is not ours. And that's a sin. When we look at something else and somebody else has and we say, I really want that, and so we get all these negative feelings, that's the wrong kind of jealousy. That's envy. But to want what is ours, what is rightfully ours, that's jealousy. And that's allowed. In fact, we are to be jealous. It is right for God to be jealous for his people because it means that he wants what is best for his people, himself. And he will not rest till he gets his people what is best for them, himself. And so there's all kinds of religious laws about this. The other religious laws about cutting oneself, trimming the edges of your beard, all these are religious rituals which they were not allowed to follow. All the other surrounding nations were performing these things as part of religious cults. And so the people of Israel are told, don't do stuff like that. If a relative tries to entice the family away from the worship of God, they are to be put to death. Because God is to have first loyalty. Idolaters are to be stoned on the word of 2 or 3 witnesses. There is to be only one place of worship, all other places of worship to be destroyed. Don't get involved in child sacrifice. Don't get involved in horrible practices. Don't consult false prophets or dreamers or consulting the dead. Don't get involved in witchcraft. Don't get involved in omens, spells, mediums, horoscopes, star signs. All of that is evil. And all of that is present today. All you have to do is read the newspaper and it's there. A whole section devoted to it. Educated men and women reading their star signs every single day. Instead, God says, follow the real prophet Moses. And what God says is also that like Moses, another prophet will be raised up from among you. It is to him you shall listen. Who is that? Jesus. Way back in Deuteronomy, God is telling the people of Israel about Jesus. I will raise up another prophet. And in John's gospel, the people of the Pharisees, you know that moment where John the Baptist is baptizing people and the Pharisees come and say, who are you, who are you, who are you? And they look at him and say, are you the prophet? They're asking him about this. And John the Baptist says, no, that's not me, another one is coming. Then they're told to dedicate all their firstborn animals to God. Why is that? Why are they told to dedicate their firstborn animals to God? First fruits, why? Why are they told? They're told to dedicate their first crops to God and first fruits to God. Why is that? It's the best. And anything else? It's a reminder of what happened in Egypt. God took the firstborn. Every firstborn child of the Egyptians died. Every firstborn child of the Israelites was saved. It's a reminder that the firstborn had a stamp of God on them. It's also a way of saying my first is for God. And so the first is given to God. They're told to celebrate festivals, Passover, Pentecost, tabernacles. They are told, this weird thing they're told that children of forbidden unions or illegitimate children are not allowed to enter the assembly until the 10th generation. Anybody read that law? But there's a law that says children of illegitimate union shall not enter the assembly up to the 10th generation. Now that's a weird thing to say and so sad for the children. But remember what I said, God's laws are a description of his character, or they are prophetic about what he is going to do. For example, why were the sacrifices there? Why did God give the command for sacrifices? Supposed to cover their sin and? Because it pointed to Jesus. God is showing the people of Israel what he is going to do. He's saying it's not going to be the animals, it's actually going to be my son. And so when a law like this comes, it seems strange, but it can be prophetic. Right? How many of you all here know the story of Judah? Judah, Jesus' great ancestor. Judah's shady story. He sleeps with his daughter-in-law, unknowingly or making him sound innocent. What did he actually think she was? A prostitute, yeah. Not innocent at all right. He sleeps with a prostitute who's actually his daughter-in-law because he had denied his daughter-in-law the right that she had to marry his son. And so she tricks him into sleeping with her and she bears a son. Alright? And she bears twins. You can be as disgusted as you want. Those are Jesus' ancestors. One of them is Zerah, one of them is Perez. Perez is Jesus' ancestor. Alright? But that is a child of, that is an illegitimate child. It is a child of a forbidden union. Right? There's this woman who's cheated her father-in-law into sleeping with her, and then when he finds out that this random woman that her daughter-in-law is pregnant, not knowing it's him who's gotten her pregnant, he says, burn her to death. And she says, guess what? You got me pregnant. And he says, oopsie, all right, sorry about that. Now here's the thing. This is Judah's lineage. And you start counting, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Who is that in the 10th generation? David, the guy who enters the assembly of God and becomes king. And there it is, God saying what he's about to do. And then they're told not to keep everything separate. Don't mix seeds, don't let an ox and a donkey work together. And so all of y'all who are working with donkeys in your office, it's a sin. Clothes of wool and linen should not be mixed. All of these seem weird, but all these were actually part of fertility cults. People would just mix seeds because they thought, oh, the seeds are mating, and so because they are mating, our business will also prosper, our women will get pregnant. It's weird kind of stuff that they would do. They would do it in the presence of their gods. They would mix cloth. They would have sex in front of the idol, saying, if we mix they would have sex with animals in front of their idol, saying, if these mixtures happen, then our crops will also grow, and our women will get pregnant, and our businesses will flourish, and all kinds of things will happen. These were fertility cults. And so God is saying, don't do any of that stuff. That's not my way. Then there are laws about government. There are laws for kings. They are told that God is their king. But they're also told that one day a human king will reign over them. And God gives that king laws. Now, can anybody tell me, if you've read Deuteronomy, what those laws for kings are? Any one of them? We've done this before, so if anybody remembers. All right, here are the laws for the kings. should not be a foreigner, should write a copy of the law for himself. But here's what I want you to see. 4 things. Not acquire many horses, not return to Egypt, not acquire many wives, not acquire excessive silver and gold. This is the law for a king. Who does all these things remind you of? Solomon. He did all these things. Now, if you're wondering about the return to Egypt thing, all his horses he bought from Egypt. And we can look at Solomon and go, wow, what a mighty king, wealthy, I want to be like that, blessings of God all over him. Except God has said, don't be like that. Especially if you're a king. And Solomon is clearly disobeying God's laws the moment he starts marrying multiple women. The moment he starts acquiring excessive silver and gold. The moment he starts acquiring many horses. Especially from Egypt. Those were rules for kings. And then there's rules for judges. No favoritism, no bribes. Don't show favoritism to the poor. Even the widow and poor should get the same treatment. If somebody is rich, don't let them bribe you. But even if they are poor and have done a crime, then justice must still be done. But if they have been wrong, if the poor have been wrong, they better get justice or else God himself will answer. And that's a scary, scary thing. In every other case, God says if they are denied justice, then the judge should take care of it. But for the poor and the widow, God says, I will take care of it. And that is a terrifying thing. It's a system of equal justice for all. And in the court of law, God says there must be 2 or 3 witnesses at least who agree on what the crime is and who has done the crime. All right? And they better not be lying about it. For example, if I say Roshan, if I'm a witness and I say Roshan has stolen 1,000 rupees from Febin and I'm lying about it, then 1,000 rupees need to be taken from me because I've lied about it. That's the law. Right? And so there should be 2 or 3 witnesses, and if the crime is death, it should be those witnesses who pick up the stone and throw the first stone. That's why Jesus, when that woman is caught in adultery and he says, y'all are witnesses, okay, if y'all haven't done the same sin, pick up the stone and throw it. By the way, you know that famous verse that Jesus says, if 2 or 3 on earth gather about anything and if you ask for it, it will be done by my name, for where 2 or 3 gather in my name, there I am in the midst of them. You've heard that, right? Jesus saying that, where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name and in the midst of them. Now, how many of y'all have assumed that means about prayer or about church gatherings? Right? We all take it to mean, oh, you better go to church then, because when 2 or 3 gather in my name, then Jesus is present, otherwise he's not. Except when you read the context, it's all about Deuteronomy. It's about church discipline. It's about, if somebody sins against you, go and tell them their fault. If they don't listen, take somebody else with you. If they don't listen, tell to the church. Why? Because Deuteronomy has already said 2 or 3 witnesses are needed. And if 2 or 3 witnesses agree against the crime, then Jesus agrees against the crime too. That's what Jesus is saying. It's about discipline. It's about Deuteronomy. It's the same law in Deuteronomy that Jesus keeps talking about. Because he's the same person who gave that law in Deuteronomy. That's the context. By the way, this is a verse that we should all thoroughly read regularly. And I'll tell you why. Because if you find something that I am doing that's shady, you better come to me and point it out. If I don't listen, you better bring somebody else and point it out. If I don't listen still, you better come here, stand up here and tell everybody. Because I am accountable and so are you. This is something we better practice properly. We have to call each other out. We can't let, what's the word? I don't know what the word is, but shady behavior be swept under the rug. Too many believing groups and gatherings have fallen because of it. This is something we need to take seriously. From Deuteronomy, from Jesus' lips. Anyway, after that, special crimes. Murder always carries the death penalty. Why does murder carry the death penalty? Alright, what are the crimes that carry the death penalty? Did you know blasphemy carries the death penalty? Alright, so why murder? Life for life. Why life for life? If I kill an animal, it's not death penalty. Made in God's image. It's not so much as harming another being as much as it is sacrilege. You are destroying something made in the image of God. You are desecrating something that is absolutely holy. And remember, Jesus said, if you are angry with a brother and you call him Raka or fool, you are murdering the person, which means you are desecrating something which is absolutely holy. To call somebody a fool is to take your Bible, throw it on the ground, step on it and spit on it. To call somebody a fool is to take the body and blood of Christ throw it on the ground, spit on it, and crush it. That's what murder is, Jesus said. And so murder is death penalty, except if it was unintended. If it was unintended, there were 6 cities assigned called the cities of refuge, where they could go and hide the killer. If it was a kill by mistake, if it was manslaughter, they could go there and hide until the high priest of Jerusalem died, and then they could come back. And if you research into it, you will see how much it points to Jesus. I don't have the time to do that today, so we won't, but it's all about Jesus, the 6 cities of refuge. Kidnapping and slavery carry the death penalty. So for anyone who says the Bible encourages slavery, guess what? If you partake in slavery, death penalty. If you kidnap somebody and make them a slave, death penalty. Death penalty for rapists. Yay! The Bible has it. Servants had rights. Weights and measures had to be accurate. You couldn't bill people extra. If you did, you were guilty of a crime. Strict instructions were given for marriage, for those married or for those who were going to marry. Adultery, both parties should be put to death. Meat and milk were not to be cooked together. Again, a law which every Jew follows very strictly by keeping a meat cabinet separate and milk cabinet separate. Except the law was you should not boil a baby goat in its mother's milk. Again, a fertility cult. It was a way of getting things to mix so that our crops would flourish, our women would get pregnant, and our businesses would flourish. It was stupid stuff, but they did it, and the people of Israel were told not to do it. Welfare and generosity, kindness was not just encouraged, kindness was commanded. Which means, like, if a plate of momos comes before you, and your hands can only take 2, don't take 3. That's what it says. Leave it for the others. It says when you're going through the harvest field, just go once. Whatever's left behind, let it be left behind for the poor. Even though you have done the work in growing them all, guess what? God let it grow. Leave it for the poor. If you are plucking grapes from the vine, do it once, then leave it for the poor. That's a command. That wasn't a suggestion. If you find a lost animal, even if it's your enemies, you must help return it. Why? Love your enemies. Why? That's God's nature. He loves his enemies. He causes the sun to shine and the rain to fall on the wicked and the good. He loved you. He loved me. We were his enemies. It's not just a New Testament concept. Animals are to be treated kindly throughout Deuteronomy. Let an animal eat when it's working. That's what Deuteronomy says. Then there's commands for war. If you are afraid of war, go home. Don't pretend you are brave. How many of you all know Rini started a podcast? Rini was telling me a story where she went to her mentor who told her to start the podcast, and she told him, you know what, I can't do that. I don't think I can do this. It's too overwhelming and all. And you know what he told her? Okay, then don't do it. Maybe it's not meant for you. That's what pushed her to do it. If you're afraid of war, don't do it. That's what Deuteronomy says. And you'll find out that you weren't really afraid of the war, that you can do it. A toilet should be set up outside the camp. That's a law. Remember when Keith was here and we did Passover, he said when the plague hit, the Jews actually didn't get affected by the plague so much because they had these cleanliness laws. Every other society just shat wherever they wanted to. But here's God saying, when you want to do it, go outside the camp and do it. Keep yourselves clean and disease will not affect you. A soldier who has been married should not go to war for at least a year. Take care of your wife and family first, then work on everything else. Now, what do we make of all of this? Because these laws are hard to understand for us in our context. Right? So let me ask you a question. How many of you all think, look at this, is this an accurate priority list when it comes to your relationship with God? God first, then spouse, family, friends. Enemies is way about food. Okay, sorry, I'll swap enemies with food if that makes you feel better. I'll swap enemies with food. Then anything else? Work? Above enemies? Okay, fine. Enemies I'll put right below entertain. I'll put at the bottom there. Anything else? If I put enemies at the bottom there, is it accurate? All right, this is how we generally view our list of priorities. We say God first, wife, husband next, family next, this, that. Except God never meant for us to make these kind of lists. This was God's list. He doesn't want to be one on a list of many. He wants to be one on a list of one. He wants to be first on a list of one. Everything, according to Deuteronomy, is holy. All of it. God is at the center of it. God is interested in the whole of our lives, not what we do on Wednesday, not what we do on Sunday, what we do on Monday, Tuesday, what we do when we're in the loo, what we do when we're having lunch, what we do when we're having a conversation with a friend or sending an email. God is involved in it all. All of it is a part of living with God. And Joni's question is, why is entertainment there in the list of this? You will read the laws in Deuteronomy and you will go, why is there don't eat camels followed by enjoy the Passover, or don't mix seeds followed by kill the rapist? Like, it's all so mixed up and so jumbled. You'll be like, what does one have to do with another? God is saying, stop trying to classify things. Don't classify them. Stop trying to distinguish between holy and sacred. It's all very holy. It's all God's. There is no sacred secular divide. All of life is for God. All these laws are there for God. All of these laws now are given for a purpose. Not to spoil our fun. No. The book says that these are given that it may be well with you and that you may live a long, happy life in the land. God wants you and me, his children, to be healthy and joyful. So he gives us laws. His purpose is his glory and our good. He wants us to enjoy what he's given us. 1 Timothy 6, God who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. Every law that he's given, every command that he's given is for our good. It's to give us more joy than what we think our idea of joy is. And so we can look at them and say, oh, God is withholding us. God is not letting me do this. God is not letting me have my fun. The laws are meant to have you have abundance of life in him. That's what they're there for. And we get to enjoy these things that God has given us. And we'll stop there and we'll do Moses' future speech next week. Thank you, Father, for all these commands. Thank you for the book. Thank you that we get to study this, dive into it. Help us understand what holiness means in every area of our lives, and may we implement it, may we listen, may we do, may we obey, and may we follow you. We love you and we thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. Hey there, thank you so much for watching this video, and we hope you were blessed by it. It would mean so much to us if you liked this video and subscribe to our channel, and also share this link with your friends. God bless you.